Welcome back to another episode of the Miami Heat Roundtable. I'm your host, Amir. You can find me at the Team to Beat Miami Heat podcast, and I'm joined today by Martel. You can find him on the Miami Heat Zone podcast. So for today's episode, we have a special guest joining the show. We have Jess from the Basement Sports Network. Jess, do you want to introduce yourself to the audience before we begin?
Yeah, sure. That's pretty much it. I'm Jess. I'm part of the Basement Sports Network. You can follow us on Twitter, working on the Instagram. We also have our affiliate Random Scrub Heat podcast. So I'm always happy to coordinate something and talk with other podcasters and other people in this space. So I'm excited.
Yeah, we're excited to have you on. Thank you
Where
again.
can they find you on Twitter? Because after this video, I know that they're like, put the app.
Mine is I think just my name. Gosh, I don't even know. Maybe Jessica Landsberg, but you can also find us at the Basement Sports N, I believe. But I'll double check. Maybe I'll drop the link if we need.
We'll add it in the description for sure before we publish. So thank you again for hopping on. Really appreciate it. So Jess, the Miami Heat have had a really quiet offseason so far. And speaking of Twitter, many fans on Twitter seem to be extremely upset with the front office. And we know the Heat are effectively running it back for the sixth time. And when we say running it back, we mean Tyler, Jimmy, and Bam as our core three. So my question for you is, what is your current outlook for the Miami Heat, and how do you feel about the current state of this Miami Heat roster going into next season?
So I guess I'm probably going to be called one of those like more pessimistic Heat fans, and I kind of always lean that way because that's just the way I am beyond the Heat. So, unfortunately, my outlook is not particularly good. I agree with a lot of fans that are frustrated that we really didn't make, a sizable move this season as we've watched not just other East contenders, but people around the league making these, impressive moves. And we're here, signing a guy that we gave 2 10-day contracts to, and Drew Smith, or, just moves that are a little confusing. Not to hate on Kevin Love, but like the Kevin Love, none of these were moves to get particularly excited about. And you watch, and I hate to use them as the example, but you watch like the Celtics even make not even huge moves every offseason, but like solid moves that they've continued to make in getting Drew and getting Porzingis, just to use them as an example. And it's like, every offseason, it sounds like we do this whole thing where we, think we're going to get a whale. Then we get frustrated that we don't get him. Then we make some like tiny move that everyone's like, kind of like, okay, well, at least we did something. And like that essentially has felt like the past few off seasons. So, if you wanted me to give you like an actual prediction, in my mind, I think we're going to be in a very similar spot. I think we're going to be fighting for a play-in spot again. And, my favorite line when I'm complaining about this team is like, we make basketball look so difficult. And it's like, it always seems like there's just like these little moves even that we could make to make our lives easier. And for some reason, we don't end up doing that. So, I'm a little frustrated about what feels like over and over, this same kind of off-season narrative. And, I'm also one of those people, my grumpy self, I don't watch a lot of Summer League. I don't get super excited about draft picks because, frankly, I haven't seen them in an NBA game yet. And so as much as Ware looks good, I can't get myself too excited yet. So that's kind of where I'm at in a nutshell.
So now where do we go forward, Jess? Because right now we have an aging superstar in Jimmy Butler, who, don't get me wrong, he's been phenomenal. He's been able to do more with less, like when you look across the NBA. But in terms of, do we pay him or should we trade him? Because when you look at Bam Adebayo, just look at what he's doing in the Olympics. I mean, he's an absolute, franchise player for sure. And I think we honestly do have a young core, even though they're not, supreme talent in Jaime, Jovic, and Tyler. It's still a decent young core going into the future. And I'm sure that we can make some moves to put better high quality role players around Bam Adebayo. So which direction should we go? Do we pay Jimmy that one extra year? Do we, trade Jimmy Butler, get a young player and some assets? Because the moves that we make now will help Bam Adebayo later.
I totally agree with you. And I am very much of the build around Bam camp. as far as Jimmy goes, and I try not to let like personal things get in the way of how I feel about basketball players or about teams or whatever. And with Jimmy, I'm like very mixed. I have been a staunch defender of him for the most part. And, I think again, along with some other fans, I've started to get a little frustrated about this kind of apathy, this like indifference that he was playing with, last season, even the season before that, and like these large, streaks of games where we're just like, what's going on? Like just that face on the basketball court, like he looks like he'd rather be anywhere else. I know there's all the jokes about the side quests and this and that, which are funny, but also it's like, is he really just like miserable? Is he not having a good time playing on this team? Like, what is it? So, I mean, as far as direction, I think absolutely, like you said, like, we're watching Bam just do unbelievable things in the Olympics. And, I think, if you have a good basketball brain that you have to build around that guy. I haven't been so much of like the trade Jimmy Butler side necessarily. I think I think you have really like a very small window, like a one more year kind of window with Jimmy, if you're going to go for it, which evidently we are. I was more of the trade Tyler Hero camp. Again, I'm also very mixed on him. I went from like, all right, I'm going to defend him. He's good. He's a good basketball player, and I don't think that he's not. I just am struggling with the fit on this team for a little while now. So I think we made a mistake, frankly, in not capitalizing and trading him and putting a better fit next to Jimmy and Bam. And now I think, I know we're exploring these different options, but I almost feel like we're kind of stuck, with this core. Not to mention even like Duncan's contract and other things that have been problematic for us. But I think that this is the last year of the Jimmy build, if we'll call it that. And I think that they should have capitalized this offseason to make use of maybe that 1 or 2 more years. I'm still a Jimmy fan. I pray that he shows up this season. I was appreciative of that Pat Riley press conference because I felt like he did deserve to be called out. He makes a lot of money. And again, extending that contract is a very serious thing to think about. I mean, that's not just, we're not throwing around money on this team. Obviously, I'm no CBA expert. I'm not going to talk to you guys about that, but I understand it very generally, and I understand the situation it put us in. And, we don't have a lot to work with here. So I think, whether I wanted him off the team, not necessarily. Do I think that might have to be the move, especially after this season? Yeah, I think so. I think you're going to have to start going in another direction. And, I'm not that excited about watching this again for, what is this, the 5th, 6th? I'm not even sure. 6th. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I'm surprised. Yeah, Trent's late to work. I think doesn't Royal say that to you sometimes, Jess? A nod to the after game, yeah, like the post game shows on the Basement Sports Network. Don't forget to check that out. Obviously, all next season. So, Trent, do you want to say something? Are you there? There we go.
What's up? What's up?
Player Tyler. So I know you want to hop in.
You said Tyler? Man,
Yeah,
Tyler. But let's not talk about Tyler, man. That dude Tyler doesn't belong on his roster anymore, bro. Let's be honest. But what's the question y'all was asking?
Oh, go ahead. It's your turn.
About the Miami Heat?
No, we're talking about the Orlando Magic, your favorite team. Come on, bro. This is Jess from the Basement Sports Network. She's our guest. So if you would like to ask her a question.
Okay, perfect. How you doing, Jess?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. My fault. I came a little late. But listen, my thing is with this Miami Heat team is I was listening to what you were saying, and you was kind of spitting. I like what you was talking about over there. So how do you feel about our undrafted players and some players that we drafted? Like, Khalil Weir, first thing first, just went off today in Summer League. But not only that, you got Johnson. Hopefully he's straight with his ankle injury. But players like Isaiah Stevens, can they replace Drew Smith? How do you feel about Josh Christopher? Like, how do you just feel about the Summer League in general? And can those players play any impactful minutes for the Miami Heat this upcoming season? Because we all know the route that we always take is undrafted players, and they play impactful minutes in postseasons and stuff like that.
Yeah. So earlier, before you jumped on, I was kind of complaining about being like this grumpy Heat fan, and I admit I do not watch a ton of Summer League. I've seen some. These guys, some of these guys have looked impressive, especially like you said, Johnson and Ware looks like someone maybe to get excited about. But here's the thing: it's like I can't jump and say, look at Khalil Ware. We're going to play him at the 5. He's going to get real minutes on an NBA team, and we're going to put Bam at the 4, and all our problems are going to be solved. I want that to be the case very much. But I try to be just very practical and very realistic. And it's like you watch guys like Ware, going off in these games, and a lot of times the transition just to like normal NBA basketball is difficult. So, I want to wish the best for that. I am by no means a Drew Smith fan. I don't think he's very good at basketball. I don't understand that move. No offense to Drew Smith. So, watching Johnson, watching some of these dunks, even watching, Alondas Williams, I'm like, they look so impressive, but I try to, not allow myself to get disappointed so I don't get too excited. But I think that there are some things to be, at least hopeful about watching them in the summer league.
And then I have another question for you, because we had a huge debate about this yesterday on a live stream. And I don't mind Nikola Jovic, but are you one of those people that make him untradeable for certain players? Because I know some people have Jovic as, I'm not trading him. He's gonna be very, very good for this future and stuff like that. And I'm just like, if you're getting a player like Mitchell or a player like Lauri Markkanen, you better offer him for that trade. But I see a lot of Heat fans saying, nah, like he's gonna be a star in this league. We better keep him. Are you one of those people that we keep in Jovic, or you'll trade him for the right piece?
I am definitely with you. I don't think that you make him untouchable at all. Again, you can look at someone like him, you can look at someone like Jaime, and you're trying to think long term about this team. And we were just talking about like, oh, if we're building around Bam, like some of these young guys, a good young core. But at the end of the day, like you just said, you're looking at what, a guy like Donovan Mitchell, and you're going to tell me, oh no, we can't get rid of Jovic though. I don't think that that's a sane argument, frankly. And again, it depends, right? Like it depends the situation that we're in. We were in a situation where I felt like we needed to move immediately because again, we're at the, kind of the end of this Jimmy Butler window, I believe. So, that should have been the move last offseason, this offseason, and we again didn't really do anything. So no, I mean, I don't think as good as they look, as promising as they look, whatever it is, it's like you don't make those guys untouchable. I'm sorry. You make Bam untouchable. You make, I don't know, whoever else, that's up to everyone's personal opinion. Frankly, I think Bam is kind of the only untouchable person on this team. And like we talked about Jimmy, depending on which direction you think this team should go in. But no, I think that's a mistake. And I think that narrowed down the options. If there were people in the front office with not just the fans, but if there were people in that front office with that mentality that we're not going to give them up. Again, those reports maybe are unsubstantiated, and I'm not going to go off of that. But I think that is short-sighted, and I think it's a mistake if you weren't willing to let some of these young guys go for a superstar, even if they look promising and look good.
And Jess, we do trade Jimmy. I heard you earlier. We do trade Jimmy. Jimmy got to get off our roster after this season. So yeah, we do.
I think he has to. I think you don't have a choice after this season. I think like after this, I'm like, this is it. You don't have anywhere to go from here with that build. It's over. Like it's done.
So Jess, or even Trent, do you see a world where Jimmy plays well enough where, let's say he plays 65, 70 games, he tries hard to get that final contract of his career, where he's trying to make an average of whatever it is going to be 50 to 55 million, which is just kind of insane to be paying him that for any team at age 37, 38, unless he goes, to your point, Trent, if he gets traded mid-season to maybe a desperate team like the Warriors who want to like have one last shot with Steph Curry, who at age 36 is still one of the top 5 best players in the NBA. I could see that happening, but do you see a world where Jimmy just like picks up his player option, or do you think we're going to trade him at some point mid-season just because we're not playing well enough? The writing's on the wall. Like we can't do a blended build of building with Jimmy, but then now looking at youth, right? Adding Jovic and Jaime and giving them minutes. Do you think there's a world where we trade Jimmy Butler mid-season, or do you think he plays out his contract, which is not just next season, but he actually picks up his option and stays? Because what world do we give him an extension? Like we're not going to be like, if we're healthy, because right now Pat and Spo and Mickey were saying, hey, we're banking on health because we're running it back. If they're fully healthy, if they have the greatest regular season, I see them as 4, like the 4th seed at best. Like realistically, if they have a really good season, 6th seed perhaps, right? What are your thoughts like just on this Jimmy saga? Like, is there a world where we re-sign him or keep him, or is he, you think, all but gone after next season?
I can start. I don't think, I'm trying to think of a respectful way to say this. I didn't want to use this term, but I don't think that Spoelstra and Riley and these guys have the balls to trade him. I think it's eventually going to be just kind of a disgruntled Jimmy that's getting out. I just don't see them doing it. We've watched them time and time again not make these like big moves, these risky moves, these whatever. So to me, it's like, a complete overhaul of the team just doesn't seem like it's in the cards. Frankly, with him as the star of the team, if we're going to continue to call him that right now, I just don't see them doing that. I think that they're too scared to, you can call it start from scratch. Obviously, you're starting with some things, with having, a superstar in Bam Adebayo, but I don't know that they would make that move. And I think some of us Heat fans that are frustrated with Jimmy at the end of the day, like, look, this is a team that's comfortable running it back how many times, and banking on health with a team like the Miami Heat. I mean, you can't expect them to get through this entire season healthy with enough of our guys that are, good and impactful in the game. Like every year we've had, how many times have we had our best players? They've played like a handful of games together each season. I think it's a mistake to bank on that. I just don't think that it's likely. Like you said, let's say they play, 70 games, whatever it is. We have a pretty healthy team. Like I see us as a 6th seed, like you just said. Like I just don't think there's not a lot of like upside. There's not really anywhere to go from here. So, and whether we want Jimmy gone or not, and we think it's done, I'm not sure this team would do it. I'm just not sure. I think they're going to have tough conversations about whether to extend him or not, but I don't know. I think that they're very much going to be like up to Jimmy. When he's ready to go, he's ready to go. That's my opinion.
So before we close, Jess, what's your starting lineup? Because there's a lot of people that are saying Duncan should start, or even Khalil Ware, Jaime, Haywood. So what is your starting lineup, and what do you think the starting lineup that Spo is going to put out there? Because there's a lot of people that want Tyler Hero to come off the bench. There's so many different scenarios, with this Miami Heat roster.
Yeah, well, I was still like more optimistic last season. I was one of those people that said Tyler should come off the bench. Frankly, because I think that we had enough games to kind of see that was working, but that also happened to be when Duncan was playing well. I can't say I've been super impressed with Duncan lately. Not that he was getting a ton of playing time, but I think that I don't know if it's a mix of, coming off the bench or losing some confidence after losing the starting position or whatever it is. And you know what? So frankly, I mean, I think we'll have to see how Duncan plays starting this next season. If Terry's healthy and ready to go, obviously Terry starts, Jimmy starts. I'm not against starting Ware and seeing how he does. I mean, again, like I said, having him at the 5 and Bam at the 4 is a dream if he is ready for NBA basketball. And again, I don't want to say that he's not. I just want to say that I don't know, because frankly, I don't know. But he looks very promising. And what we've seen in him, scoring 26 points or whatever it was today, obviously he has skill. We just need to see how it translates against, these good NBA teams. So, I mean, what I think the team will do, I think the team is 100% going to start Tyler. I guess it's Terry, Tyler. We didn't even get to talk today about Caleb being gone, which I think is a big loss.
Wait, think about that, because me personally, I don't think he was worth the $65 million when he's coming off of a down year. You know what I mean? He didn't really play that well. Like, how can we give you a raise? I mean, I know they're going to say the market is the market, but how can we give you $65 million and you played worse than the year before?
No, I agree with you. Nor can you continue to go off of this. Well, look at how he played against Denver in the we can't hang on to that. But at the same time, I think it's the money didn't make sense, but I think it's a loss for us because there were a lot of times where Caleb was not only he was such a well-rounded player, in my opinion, that I always said his shot wasn't dropping, or he wasn't getting to the rim, that he was playing defense, he was diving for the loose ball, all those intangibles. It was kind of even how I felt about like PJ Tucker, like just like this role that it's like you don't realize until it's gone that it's like, oh, that was important. So I think that stinks. I mean, I don't know. Why am I blanking? Who would be at the 3? I think it'll probably be a oh, well, I guess I
Jimmy
don't know.
tech
Would they play Terry, Jimmy, Tyler? Yeah, I guess they would. And they probably will. And I think it's the smartest idea. I don't think Terry and Tyler looked very good in the couple games that they were on the court together. So, but that speaks to our deeper rooted issues that we have on this team. So,
Yeah, and people talk about let's just insert Duncan next to Terry or Tyler, but like his net rating with both those players weren't great because you mentioned it. Like Duncan, like did improve like his skill set where he's not just a 3-point specialist, but he still had some games that were mediocre. So it's not an easy fix.
and that's not even talking about defense. I mean, defense is atrocious. I mean, the thought of Terry Duncan. I mean, look, Jimmy's a good defender when he wants to be. Bam's the best defender on the team. Haywood is the second best defender on the team. And frankly, Haywood Highsmith has to improve his offensive game so much that it's not a liability to have him in the game just because we need his defense. So we're a little stuck in more ways than one. But you know what? I'm gonna try to be optimistic. It's rare for me, but I'm gonna try because why not? We have nothing to lose.
It's hard to be, honestly, after the product they're going to put in front of us too. And before we close, to the last thing though, you mentioned Haywood. Obviously, he's limited when it comes to his offensive skill set. He is learning a little bit, like towards the end of the season, how to put the ball on the floor. And he had that little PJ Tucker kind of push shot, so he was making more layups and finishing more in the lane, which is good. But do you see a world where he could replace Jovic in the starting lineup and Jovic goes back to the bench because of the lack of defense? Because you mentioned it, Terry and Tyler, not the best. They're undersized. They're not great defensively. Jimmy's fine, but he's getting older, and it depends on if he's engaged or not. And obviously, Bam is top 3 defender in the league. So will having Jovic be a liability, or do we just continue to have him there so we actually have some size in that front court, something that we lacked until we put him in the starting lineup last year?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're both going to kind of have to have it out. And you know how Spo is with changing his rotations all the time. Like, it's kind of like who's the next man up. And so, like I said, I mean, I think, Jovic, his offensive game is coming to him, and he looks smoother, for lack of a better term, on the offensive end than Haywood does. But I think that Haywood can be a serious threat to his position, number one, depending on how terrible we look defensively and if we're really struggling to contain some of these guys. And it's not that Jovic is not a good defender, but I'd call him more of even like a shot blocker more than like, I think of Haywood as just like quick, big wingspan, like, tripping guys up. Like, so they're a little different in a sense in like how they play. But I think if Haywood, significantly improves his offensive game, which again we've seen, he certainly looked better at the end of that season. I think he was getting his confidence up. He was hitting some shots. He looked just overall more confident on the offensive end. But he can become a real contender if he continues to improve his offensive game. So he could be a threat to Jovic's minutes if he does that. But it just goes to show too, like, I always love the term like offense wins games, defense wins championships. Oh my God, I don't want to mess that up. But I'm a big defense person, and I think the Heat have, failed at getting good two-way players. And again, that's causing this problem right here, where it's like we have guys that'll go on these streaks where they can't hit a shot to save their life, but it's like, who's going to guard Tatum and Jaylen Brown? And, so, and I think we even saw a glimpse of that at the end of last season. So I don't know. We're going to have to see. I really like Haywood, just like personally, and I hope that he continues to improve because I don't think he's bad. And I think he earned his minutes and he deserved to be out there. So I hope his offensive game takes a leap.
Yeah, even though next season seems to be bleak, if we're saying that at best we're hoping to be a 6th seed, which doesn't win championships because seeding does matter, right? Like you have to be a top 3 team to win championships based on the data and the history. 97% of all champions have been the top 3 seeds. So
and I think Jaime is an X factor, just as a last thing. I think that he's an X factor this season because, a lot of people, again, are talking about kind of this leap that he looks like he's taking. And I think he's a difference maker if that proves to be true when this season starts.
Yeah. And I have the same mindset as you. Like, I can care less about summer league. Like half those guys are literally not going to be in the league. So show it to me on an NBA level. Like, it's cool that you're playing well. Jaime, it's cool you balled up some scrubs, but like most of those guys are not in the league. You should be getting maybe not 29 points per game. That is a little impressive to a certain degree, but you should be scoring 20 points per game against the guy who's going to be a janitor or an accountant, right? So,
Yes.
so I agree with you on that. But so, Jess, before we hop off though, do you want to just again let the audience know where they can find your work and how they
Yes,
can
and
find
let
you?
me because I'm old. I'm gonna double check what my Twitter handle is so that I don't mess this up. It is. Oh, it's J Landsberg 12, my old number. Sorry, I was wrong about that earlier. J Landsberg 12, and I'm gonna make sure that we have the right basement. Okay, at Basement Sports N for network. So you can find us there. You can find me there on Twitter. Happy to have any fellow Heat fans follow the journey. So I'm here to complain with you all and celebrate with you all and all the other things that we feel throughout these Heat seasons.
Awesome.
Well,
Well,
thank
thank you so much.
Go ahead, Amir.
I'll just say thank you so much. Make sure to go follow Jess on Twitter. Also, make sure to go subscribe to the Basement Sports Network YouTube channel. Obviously, go check out their Twitter. Excited to see what you guys are going to be producing all season long. Martel, any closing words?
Like, share, comment, subscribe, and thank you for all the support.